Hello everybody, welcome to Israel's Church of Living God. I'm Brother Rodney and Brother Jeff will be reading today. We'll be doing today's lesson is entitled, The Israelites are Black People, 2 Chronicles. The Israelites are black people, 2 Chronicles, because when you read the Bible, you see that the Israelites in the Bible are black. But the world knows the people that look white as the Jews. Are they Hebrews? Yes, they are Hebrews, just like we read last Sabbath. They are Hebrews. In fact, they are Israel's twin brothers, and they are our twin brothers. But are they Jews? No, they are not Jews. So we're going to get started in the lesson. We're not going to make this a long drawn-out lesson. So we're going to get started in it. We're going to go back, though. We're going to show you that Jacob's name was changed to Israel. So we're going back now. We're going back to Genesis, the 35th chapter. We're going to pick up at verse 9. Genesis 35 and 9. 35 and 9. Go ahead and read it.
And God appeared unto Jacob again when he came out of Padanaram and blessed him. And God said unto him, Thy name is Jacob. Thy name shall not be called any more Jacob, but Israel shall be thy name.
So he said, your name is not going to be Jacob no more. It's going to be called Israel. Go ahead and read.
And he called his name Israel.
And he called Jacob's name what? Israel. Right? So now, let's go now. Because we're just doing a brief recap. Let's go now. Let's go to Exodus, the first chapter. Because Jacob had 12 sons, right? Let's go to Exodus, the first chapter, which we read last Sabbath. Those are the 12 tribes of Israel. But we're going to do a brief recap. Exodus 1 and 1. Exodus 1 and 1. Go ahead and read it.
Now these are the names of the children of Israel.
Now, who are the children of Israel? These are Jacob's children, right? Go ahead and read.
Which came into Egypt. Every man and his household came with Jacob. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah.
Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah. Go ahead and read.
Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin. Dan and Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. And all the souls that came out of the loins of Jacob were 70 souls. For Joseph was in Egypt already.
So now that's 12 sons, right? Because Joseph was the second to his number 11. Then you had Benjamin, right? Now, let's go now. Let's go to Psalms 105. Psalms 105. Psalms 105, and we're going to pick it up at verse 17. How's everybody doing today?
All right.
All right. Y'all ready for tomorrow? Psalms 105, and we're going to pick it up at verse 17. Psalms 105 and 17. I know my brother say, man, just don't say you're nervous, but I can't help it. I'm just nervous. Psalms 105 and 17. Go ahead and read.
He sent a man before them, even Joseph, who was sold for a servant.
Now, we saw that earlier. Joseph was already down in Egypt, wasn't he? Now, and the Egyptians, we're going to see the Egyptians are black people. But go ahead and read. We're going to find out that everybody we pretty much dealing with today are black. Go ahead and read.
Verse 18. Whose feet they hurt with fetters. He was laid in iron until the time that his word came. The word of the Lord tried him. The king sent and loosed him, even the ruler of the people, and let him go free. He made him lord of his house.
He made him lord of his house. Go ahead.
And ruler of all his substance. To bind his princes at his pleasure, and teach his senators wisdom.
Now look, Joseph was teaching the Egyptian senators wisdom. Now this is before Moses got there and the children of Israel really settled there. You understand? Now Joseph is teaching the senators in Egypt wisdom. Go ahead.
23. Israel also came into Egypt.
Now, because you always hear those Egyptologists. I'm not trying to talk about. You always hear those Egyptologists bragging about the Egyptians and how smart they were. But look who's teaching them some wisdom right here. Joseph, right? And they ain't really but one wisdom. That's the word of God, ain't it? Go ahead and read that again.
23. Israel also came into Egypt.
Israel also, that's Jacob, right? Go ahead.
And Jacob sojourned in the land of Ham.
And Jacob sojourned in the land of Ham. So we talking about the same one. Israel, Jacob, we dealing with the same one. Let's go now. Let's go look at Ham for a minute. Let's go look at Ham for a minute. We're going to Genesis, the 10th chapter. Genesis 10. We're going to look at Ham for a minute. We're going to Genesis 10, and we're going to pick up at verse 6. Genesis 10 and 6. We're going to run down Ham a little bit, and we're going to look at some of the people that came out of Ham. Genesis 10 and 6. Go ahead and read it.
And the sons of Ham. Cush and Mizraim.
Cush and Mizraim. We're going to find out a little later who Cush is and who Mizraim is. Go ahead.
And Put. And Canaan. And the sons of Cush. Seba and Havilah and Sapta and Ramah and Sapteca. And the sons of Ramah. Sheba and Dedan. And Cush begat Nimrod.
Stop right there. And Cush begat Nimrod. So Nimrod came out of, we're going to find out Cush is Ethiopia, by the way. We're going to find, we see now that Nimrod came out of Cush, which is Ethiopia. What did he do? Go ahead.
He began to be a mighty one in the earth. He was
so the first real mighty man in the earth was a Cushite or Ethiopian. They on the bottom now, aren't they? Go ahead and read. Only thing you hear about Ethiopia is they either selling coffee or they starving or something. They were on top though, now they on the bottom. But go ahead and read though.
Verse 9. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel.
Stop right there. So you mean some Cushites or Africans, as we call them today, was over Babylon or Babel? Because when we hear about Babylon, we always hear about Nebuchadnezzar, don't we? But before Nebuchadnezzar got there, you had black people there, which was Babylon. Babel, which were the Ethiopians. Go ahead.
And Eric, and Akkad, and Calneh in the land of Shinar. Out of that land went forth Asher, and builded Nineveh.
Stop right there. Remember Jonah was in Nineveh? So these were African people that Jonah went to. Well, the Lord told him to go and teach the people, but he tried to take off. Then he ran there, teaching them. Trying to teach them, right? But these were black people, or what we commonly know now as African people. Go ahead.
And the city Rehoboth, and Calah, and Rezin between Nineveh and Calah. The same is a great city.
Go ahead.
And Mizraim begat Ludim, and Anamim, and Lahabim, and Naphtahim, and Pathrusim.
Go ahead.
And Casalim, out of whom came Philistim.
Out of who came who?
Philistim.
The Philistines. Like Goliath, David was fighting Goliath. The Philistine, Goliath was a Philistine. So he came out of Ham, which are what? Black people. Go ahead.
And Caphtorim. And Canaan begat Sidon, his firstborn, and Heth. And the Jebusite.
The Jebusites. Go ahead.
And the Amorite. And the Gigarsite. And the Hivite. And the Archite. And the Sinite. And the Arvadite.
Now I'm reading this because this is the land that the children of Israel took over. They took over the land of the Amorites and the Girgasites and the Havites and the Archite and the Sinite. Go ahead and read.
18. And the Arvadite and the Zemarite and the Hamathite.
And the Hamathite. Go ahead.
And afterward were the families of the Canaanites spread abroad. And the border of the Canaanites was from Sidon as thou comest to Gerar unto Gaza.
Unto Gaza. Because, that's where Jesus and the apostles were during his time, around Gaza. You even hear about the Gaza Strip now, don't you? Those were African people that originally inhabit that land. Go ahead.
As thou goest unto Sodom and Gomorrah.
Oh, you mean Sodom and Gomorrah? These were Hamitic people, or what we commonly know today as African people? Sodom and Gomorrah. You never hear about this in churches, do you? Go ahead and read.
And Admah, and Zeboim, even unto Lasha. And the border of the Canaanites was from Sidon, as thou comest to Gerar, unto Gaza. As thou goest unto Sodom and Gomorrah.
Go ahead.
And Admah, and Zeboim, even unto Lasha.
Now Sodom and Gomorrah, these were black people, right? Go ahead, verse 20, go ahead.
These are the sons of Ham, after their families, after their tongues, in their countries, and in their nations.
Do you see Gentile after that? You don't see Gentile after that, do you? So these are the sons of Ham after their families, after their tongues, in their countries, and in their nations. Let's go now, because we're gonna go to First Chronicles, the first chapter. We're gonna pick up his 4 sons again, because we want to look and see who a couple of these sons are. So we're gonna go to First Chronicles, the first chapter. First Chronicles, the first chapter, and we're gonna read one verse, verse 8. We're gonna pick up those sons again, verse 8. First Chronicles 1 and 8. When you get it, go ahead and read it.
The sons of Ham. Cush and Mizraim.
Cush and Mizraim. Go ahead.
Put and Canaan.
So now, these are his 4 sons right here, right? So now we're going to look up Ham real quick. We're going to look up Ham. We're going to Zondervan's Bible Dictionary. We're looking up Ham real quick. Go ahead.
Ham. The youngest son of Noah. Born probably about 96 years before the flood. And one of 8 persons to live through the flood. He became the progenitor of the dark races, but not the Negroes.
He became the progenitor of the dark races, but not the Negroes. Now, who are the Negroes? Everybody, y'all ain't got to be scared to say it. Y'all know we the Negroes. But who's the father of those? Go ahead.
But not the Negroes, but the Egyptians.
But the Egyptians. Do you mean the Egyptians were black? That's right. Go ahead and read.
Ethiopians.
Well, everybody knows that the Ethiopians. That's why when you see the movie The 10 Commandments, they couldn't change. They changed the Egyptian to white, didn't they? They changed the Israelite to white too, but they couldn't change the Ethiopian because he's still black today, ain't he?
Yes, sir.
They would have had a hard time pulling that one off. But go ahead and read.
Libyans.
The Libyans,
And Canaanites.
And the Canaanites. So we know that the Canaanites are black too now, don't we? Now, we're going to read a couple of his sons right here. We're going to pick up Cush real quick. Go ahead.
Cush, oldest son of Ham. That indefinite country translated Ethiopia.
Ethiopia. So Cush is Ethiopia. And we know that Ethiopians still today are dark-skinned, or what you want to call them, black. You understand? We know that today. They still the same color today, aren't they? After all of these years, because we read Nimrod was a Cushite, wasn't he? And he became a mighty hunter in the earth. They've been black ever since. They've been black ever since. Just like the Egyptian, the real Egyptian, we're going to find out, the real Egyptian, he is black. The real Israelites are black. Now, you done with that?
The country settled by Ham's descendants.
The country settled by Ham's descendants. Now, we're going to read about Mizraim.
Mizraim, son of Ham. Progenitor of Egyptians.
Progenitor of the Egyptians. That's who Mizraim. He is the father, just like he is the father of who? The Philistines. So the Philistines and Egyptians came out of Mizraim. You finished with that?
People of North Africa, Hamitic people.
Hamitic people. You done with that?
Yes, sir.
So now, they came out of North Africa, what we call African people, right? Now, let's go to Genesis, the 50th chapter. And we're going to pick it up at verse 1. Genesis 50 and verse 1. Everybody follow along so far?
Yes, sir.
We're dealing with Hamitic people, or Ham seed, which are African people. We're going to Genesis 50, and we're going to pick it up at verse 1. Go ahead and read.
And Joseph fell upon his father's face and wept.
Now this is when Jacob had died. Jacob had died, and they were down in Egypt, right? Because we read that earlier. Joseph and Jacob were down in Egypt. Now Jacob died right here. So Joseph is getting ready to bury his father. And look at what the Canaanites, the black people, said when Joseph was getting ready to bury his father Jacob. So read that verse 1 again.
Verse 1.
Uh-huh.
And Joseph fell upon his father's face,
uh-huh,
and wept upon him, and kissed him.
Go ahead.
And Joseph commanded his servants, the physicians, to embalm his father.
Uh-huh.
And the physicians embalmed Israel. And 40 days were fulfilled for him.
Uh-huh.
For so are fulfilled the days of those which are embalmed.
Go ahead.
And the Egyptians mourned for him 70 days.
Now the Egyptians even mourned for him. But go ahead and read.
Verse 4.
Uh-huh.
And when the days of his mourning were past, Joseph spake unto the house
Now
of...
remember now, Jacob is an Israelite, ain't he? But he among these Egyptians with his son Joseph, which is an Israelite. Right? So the Egyptians, they even mourning for Jacob. Go ahead and read.
Joseph spake unto the house of Pharaoh, saying, If now I have found grace in your eyes,
uh-huh,
speak, I pray you, in the ears of Pharaoh, saying, My father made me swear, saying, Lo, I die. In my grave, which I have digged for me in the land of Canaan,
uh-huh,
there shalt thou
now
bury
wait a
me.
minute. They were all, Jacob and them, before they came to Egypt, they were in the land of Canaan amongst what? African people. Go ahead and read.
Now therefore, let me go up, I pray thee,
Uh-huh.
and bury my father,
Go ahead.
and I will come again. And Pharaoh said, Go up and bury thy father, according as he made thee swear.
Uh-huh.
And Joseph went up to bury his father, and with him went all the servants of Pharaoh, the elders of his house, and all the elders of the land of Egypt,
Uh-huh.
and all the house of Joseph, and his brethren, and his father's house. Only their little ones and their flocks and their herds they left in the land of Goshen.
So now you got all of Joseph's house and his brothers and his father's house, right? And you got the servants of Pharaoh coming up too, right? Go ahead and read.
Verse 9.
Uh-huh.
And there went up with him both chariots and horsemen,
Uh-huh.
and it was a very great company.
And it was a very great company. Go ahead and read. Now, you know, these are all black people that we reading about right here. I'm going to show you. Go ahead and read.
And they came to the threshing floor of Atad,
Uh-huh.
which is beyond Jordan. And there they mourned with a great and very sore lamentation.
Uh-huh.
And he made a mourning for his father 7 days.
Go ahead.
And when the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites, saw the mourning in the floor of Atad.
Now here goes the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites. They saw this funeral procession, right? Look at what they said. Go ahead. Read that over.
Verse 11.
Uh-huh.
And when the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites, saw the mourning in the floor of Atad,
uh-huh,
they said, This is a grievous mourning to the Egyptians.
This is a grievous mourning unto the Egyptians. Go ahead and read.
Wherefore the name of it was called Abel Mizraim.
Wherefore the name of it was called Abel Mizraim, which means a great mourning for the Egyptians. But look, why they say a mourning for the Egyptians when the funeral was for who? An Israelite.
Yeah.
Everybody see what I'm saying? Because we know that the Egyptians are black people, right?
Yes,
Just like the Canaanites, that's his brother, they were black too. So when they saw this funeral procession, which was for Jacob, an Hebrew Israelite, they said it's a great mourning for the Egyptians. Why? Because everybody there was black. That's why. They didn't say it's a great mourning for the Hebrews and the Egyptians. They said it's a great mourning for the Egyptians. Everybody there was black. And you know, once Israel go to country, that's just like we in this country now. You wear that dress, right? So they can't tell, because if the Hebrews had on different clothes, then maybe they probably would have thought about it for a minute. But they said this is a great mourning for the Egyptians, because everybody there was dressed the same and everybody looked the same. Everybody was black. Now, let's go to, we're just going to throw this in here real quick. We're going to Job 30 and 30. Job 30 and 30. We're going to throw this in here real quick. Look at what Job said right here. 30 and 30. You got it?
Got it.
Go ahead and read it.
My skin is black upon me.
We ain't got to read no more, do we? He said, my skin is black upon me. This is Job. Now, he's an Israelite, right? He's straight to the point. My skin is black upon me. Why don't nobody ever read this? Read that again.
Verse 30.
Uh-huh.
My skin is black upon me.
Uh-huh.
And my bones are burned with heat.
And my bones are burned with heat. You know, I had a Gentile tell me, well, couldn't it be because he was standing in the sun? I was like, you standing in the sun now. Have you turned black? I'll tell you, boy, people come up with some of everything, don't they? To try to get around the truth. I mean, it's the truth. The truth is the truth. And the truth is going to be known to the whole world one day. Everybody going to know who the Israelites are. Now, let's go to Acts the 7th chapter. Acts the 7th chapter. Because we're going to skip some generations here. And we can't read all of this. So we're going to skip some generations. We're going to go back to Jacob and Joseph. Then we're going to skip down to Moses. Acts 7 and 15. Acts 7 and 15. When you get it, go ahead and read it.
So Jacob went down into Egypt and died.
So now Jacob was black and the Egyptians were black, weren't they? And so he died there. Go ahead and read.
He and our fathers. And were carried over into Shechem and laid in the sepulchre of Abraham, bought for a sum of money of the sons of Immer, the father of Shechem. And
you come tomorrow to the black history, you're going to find out that Abraham was black too. Go ahead and read.
But when the time of the promise drew nigh, which God had sworn to Abraham, the people grew and multiplied in Egypt, till another king arose which knew not Joseph. The same dealt subtly with our kindred, and evil entreated our fathers, so that they cast out their young children to the end they might not live. In which time Moses was born.
In which time Moses was born. Go ahead and read.
And was exceeding fair, and nourished up in his father's house 3 months. And when he was cast out, Pharaoh's daughter took him up and nourished him for her own son.
We're going to find out what was going on during this time that Moses was nourished up in the Pharaoh's daughter's house. Go ahead and read though.
22. And Moses was learned in all the wisdom of the Egyptians. And was mighty in words and in deeds.
Go ahead.
And when he was full 40 years old, it came into his heart to visit his brethren, the children of Israel.
See, Moses, you see the movie, Moses didn't know Moses knew all the time that he was a Hebrew. Because his sister, Moses' actual sister, went to Pharaoh's daughter and said, you want me to nurse them? You want me to have him nurse? She said, yeah, go back, have him nurse. In other words, take him back to his mama and nurse him, and then bring him back to me. And Moses grew up in his people's house, in the Israelites' house, and he knew that he was an Israelite. Yes, not like you see on the Ten Commandments. Somebody found a cloth and it, I'm a Hebrew? No, he knew it already. What verse you stopped at?
Verse 24.
Go ahead and read it.
24. And seeing one of them suffer wrong, he defended him and avenged him that was oppressed, and smote the Egyptian.
So now, why did he kill this Egyptian? And he said he saw him oppressing one of his brothers. Moses was an Israelite, wasn't he? But he knew that he was in. Let's go back though. Let's go to Exodus, the 1st chapter. Exodus 1st chapter. See, that's what the problem is. People don't read the book. Then when we read it to them, man, y'all think y'all know everything. No, we don't. We just read. That's all. That's all we're doing is reading, aren't we? We're in Exodus, the 1st chapter, and we're going to pick it up at verse 8. Exodus 1 and 8. Go ahead and read it.
Now
everybody got it? I hear some pages turning. Go ahead and read it.
Now there rose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph.
Now Joseph had died. Jacob died, Joseph died, but they still in Egypt though, the children of Israel. Go ahead and read.
And he said unto his people, Behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we.
Go ahead.
Come on, let us deal wisely with them.
Now this is what the Egyptians saying now. Look, they start having so many babies. They like, man, they more in multitude than us. We gonna have to deal with these people. Go ahead and read.
Lest they multiply, and it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies, and fight against us.
Go ahead.
And so get them up out of the land. Therefore they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens.
Now you got a black people that's got a black people in slavery now. Well, you can see that today. We're going to get to that in a minute. You can see that today. Go ahead and read.
And they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramses. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew.
Go ahead. You know, the more they afflict, the more they grew. I'm getting whooped, so you know I might well go home and sleep with the wife. You understand? And now they start growing. Go ahead and read.
Middle of 12. And they were grieved because of the children of Israel. And the Egyptians made the children of Israel to serve with rigor.
Go ahead.
And they made their lives bitter with hard bondage.
And they made their lives bitter with hard bondage. So now you got a black people, which are the Egyptians, got another black people in slavery, which are the Israelites. Go ahead and read.
In mortar and in brick, and in all manner of service in the field. All their service wherein they made them serve was with rigor.
Now, skip down to verse 15. Keep reading.
15. And the king of Egypt spake to the Hebrew midwives, of which the name of one was Shiphrah, and the name of the other Puah. And he said, when you do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew women, and see them upon the stools, if it be a son, then ye shall kill him. Now,
you know, you ask an Egyptian woman to kill, a Hebrew woman or an Israelite woman to kill a Hebrew baby. They like, you know, we can't do this. But the Lord was working with them, though, with these midwife women. Go ahead and read.
But if it be a daughter, then she shall live.
So if it's a son, you kill him. But if it's a daughter, you can let her live. Why? Because the male carries the seed. See, the man is the one that keeps the species going, or keeps the people going. Go ahead and read.
17.
That's why when you look at Jacob, he had like 4 wives. But all his children were called what? Israelites. Go ahead and read.
17. But the midwives feared God, and did not as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the men children alive.
Go ahead. The Lord reward them for this. Go ahead.
And the king of Egypt called for the midwives, and said unto them, why have ye done this thing?
Now, you know, you're going to ask a Hebrew woman to kill Hebrew children. And he's going to come to him and ask him, you know, why have you done this? You know, people, I don't know what Pharaoh was thinking about, but anyway, go ahead and read. And I mean, who could do that? You seeing somebody born look just like you, same color and everything, and now you're going to kill them. Go ahead and read.
And have saved the men children alive. And the midwives said unto Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not as the Egyptian women.
See, they thought real fast. They were quick on their feet. You know, the Hebrew women, they not as fast as the Egyptian women. But go ahead and read.
For they are lively, and are delivered ere the midwives come in unto them. Therefore God dealt well with the midwives.
Go ahead.
And the people multiplied and waxed very mighty. And
go ahead.
21. And it came to pass, because the midwives feared God, that he made them houses. And Pharaoh charged all his people, saying, every son that is born ye shall cast into the river, and every daughter ye shall save alive.
So now they're killing the babies at this time. You know, the male child, you kill them, but the female child, you can save them. Because the man carries seed. Now we're going to go right on into Exodus 2 and 1. Exodus 2 and 1. Because Moses is getting ready to be born. Go ahead and read.
And there went a man of the house of Levi, and took to wife a daughter of Levi. And the woman conceived and bare a son. And when she saw him that he was a goodly child, she hid him 3 months.
Go ahead.
And when she could not longer hide him, she took for him an ark of bulrushes, and daubed it with slime and with pitch, and put the child therein.
Uh-huh.
And she laid it in the flags by the river's brink.
Go ahead. Now you see this on the Ten Commandments, but you see the baby, he white though, ain't he? Go ahead and read.
Verse 4.
Uh-huh.
And his sister stood afar off.
And his sister stood afar off. Go ahead.
To wit what would be done to him.
Uh-huh.
And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself at the river. And her maidens walked along by the river's side.
Uh-huh.
And when she saw the ark among the flags, she sent her maid to fetch it.
Go ahead.
And when she had opened it, she saw the child. And behold, the babe wept. And she had compassion on him, and said, This is one of the Hebrews' children.
This is one of, she knew it was a Hebrew child, didn't she?
Yes, sir.
She said, this is one of the Hebrew children. Go ahead, what happened after that?
Verse 7.
Uh-huh.
Then said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter.
Then said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter. Go ahead and read.
Shall I go and call to thee a nurse of the Hebrew women,
Uh-huh.
that she may nurse the child for thee?
Go ahead.
And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, Go. And the maid went and called the child's mother.
Uh-huh.
And Pharaoh's daughter said unto her, Take this child away, and nurse it for me, and I will give thee thy wages.
Look, she gonna pay her. So Moses was weaned by his mother. Right? And then you got his sister, which went up to Pharaoh's daughter and asked her, look, you want me to have this child weaned? She said, yeah, go back and have the child weaned, and then I'm going to pay you. That is really something, ain't it? But the Lord had this set up already, though. Go ahead and read. What verse you at?
Middle of 9.
Uh-huh.
And the woman took the child and nursed it.
Uh-huh.
And the child grew. And she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son.
And he became Pharaoh. Well, wait a minute, though. Now, Pharaoh was having a male child killed, wasn't he? But now, you got Pharaoh's daughter taking this child, right, as her own son. Now, I wonder how she pulled that off. Now, if he was white, like we see today, you understand the Hebrews white, how could she pull this off? That baby had to be black, didn't he?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Go ahead and read.
And she called his name Moses.
Uh-huh.
And she said, Because I drew him out of the water.
Look, an Egyptian woman named Moses. An Egyptian woman. Go ahead and read.
Verse 11.
Uh-huh.
And it came to pass in those days, when Moses was grown, that he went out unto his brethren.
Uh-huh. Now when Moses was grown, he went out to his brothers, so he knew that he was an Israelite, didn't he? Go ahead and read.
And looked on their burdens.
Uh-huh.
And he spied an Egyptian smiting an Hebrew.
And he spied an Egyptian smiting a Hebrew. Now we're going to get that picture right there. I want you to show that picture right there, brother. I want you to show this picture, and I want you to read this caption right here. Read that caption. He spied an Egyptian smiting a Hebrew, right? We're going to show that one too. But go ahead and read this caption down here. What does it say?
An Egyptian slave endures a flogging in this fresco.
An Egyptian slave endures a flogging. See, everybody, we're going to pass it around, everybody can see it. Everybody on here is black. An Egyptian is flogging an Israelite slave. But go ahead and read.
From a tomb of the new kingdom.
Uh-huh.
The number
I'll tell you what, read that over again. Read it one more time.
An Egyptian slave endures a flogging in its fresco from a tomb of the new kingdom. The number of slaves in Egypt increased dramatically during the new kingdom, 1570 to 1085 BC.
Go ahead.
As a result of foreign conquest. The Israelites were enslaved during this period.
Oh, you see who was enslaved during this period? The Israelites were enslaved. But you got all black people there, don't you? You got the Egyptians, which were black, flogging an Israelite, which was black. We're going to do that one later. Everybody get the picture? Read verse 11 one more time.
Verse 11.
Uh-huh.
And it came to pass in those days, when Moses was grown, that he went out unto his brethren and looked on their burdens. And he spied an Egyptian smiting an Hebrew.
Now, who is his brother? The Hebrew, right? Go ahead and read.
One of his brethren.
Now, we're going to skip now. Skip down to verse 16. Skip down to verse 16. Go ahead and read.
16. Now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water and filled the troughs to water their father's flock.
Now, Moses had, when he went from Egypt, because, you know, Pharaoh found out that he had killed this Egyptian, and Pharaoh got after him, right? So Moses fled to Midian. Now look at what happened in Midian. Go ahead and read.
Verse 17.
Uh-huh.
And the shepherds came and drove them away.
Uh-huh.
But Moses stood up and helped them.
Now he helped these women that were watering the flock, right? Because these other shepherds came out and they, you know, kind of like gangstered the women. Get out of here, you know. Go ahead and read.
And
maybe I should have said gangster. But anyway, go ahead.
And watered their flock.
Uh-huh.
And when they came to Reuel their father, he said, how is it that ye are come so soon today? And they said, an Egyptian delivered us.
Oh, wait a minute. You see what they called Moses? They said an Egyptian delivered us. Now, those people knew the difference between white and black at that time. You understand? So now, if Moses was white, like we see today, the Jews are calling themselves, why they say an Egyptian, which is black, delivered us? Because Moses was black. That's how he grew up in Pharaoh's house. And Pharaoh didn't know the difference till later on when they got after him. You understand? They knew he was a Hebrew then. But you see right here that these daughters right here told their father, look, an Egyptian delivered us, which was Moses. But Moses was what? An Hebrew Israelite, which was what? Black. Go ahead and read. What verse you at?
Beginning of 19.
Uh-huh.
And they said, an Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds.
Go ahead.
And also drew water enough for us.
Now, so we're going to find out somebody else later was mistaken as an Egyptian. Another Israelite was mistaken as an Egyptian. But let's go to Numbers, the 12th chapter. Numbers 12. Numbers 12. Let's look at something else right here. Numbers 12, and we're going to pick it up at verse 1. Numbers 12 and 1. Because that's the name of the lesson. The Israelites are black people. And that's what we show you today. That not only were the Egyptians and all those black, but the Israelites are black people. And still are today. Ain't no such thing as no white Israelite. Not physically, but spiritually it could be a Jew. But physically, ain't no such thing as no white Israelite or white Jew. And you heard it here first. Numbers 12, and we're going to pick it up at verse 1. Numbers 12 and 1. Go ahead and read it.
And Miriam and Aaron spake against Moses because of the Ethiopian woman whom he had married.
Now wait a minute. This is Moses' older brother and older sister Miriam. And Aaron, his brother, right? Now they got mad at Moses because he married an Ethiopian. He married a black woman. Go ahead and read.
For he had married an Ethiopian woman.
Uh-huh.
And they said, have the Lord indeed spoken only by Moses?
Uh-huh.
Hath he not spoken also by us? And the Lord heard it.
Now the Lord got mad and he came down and he dealt with Miriam and Aaron. Skip down to verse 9. We're going to see what he did with Miriam. Go ahead.
And the anger of the Lord was kindled against them.
Uh-huh.
And he departed.
Go ahead.
And the cloud...
That is something, right? you know you in trouble. You understand? Because he told them, all y'all come on down here. I want to meet with y'all. Right? So they came down there, Lord, well, he probably got a good look at him and just took off. I know they was like, man, what is he going to do? Like mama say, boy, when I come back, I'm going to get you later. You trembling all day, ain't you? Wait, no, you going to get tore up. But go ahead and read, though, verse 10.
Verse 10.
Uh-huh.
And the cloud departed from off the tabernacle.
Uh-huh.
And behold, Miriam became leprous.
Uh-huh.
White as snow.
Oh, she became leprous. White as snow. If she was white already, what's the difference? Now you have made me a couple of shades whiter. Okay. There ain't no punishment. But if I'm black and you done turned me white, now I got a problem, don't I? Read that again.
Verse 10.
Uh-huh.
And the cloud departed from off the tabernacle.
Uh-huh.
And behold, Miriam became leprous.
Go ahead.
White as snow. And Aaron looked upon Miriam, and behold, she was leprous.
And Aaron, he probably looked at her like, man, I hope he don't turn me white. But Miriam and Aaron and Moses were black, and the Lord turned Moses' sister white. Because if she was white already, he turned her a few shades lighter, then hey, you understand? What's the big deal? But if she was black, it was turned white. Now, I'm scared out of my wits, aren't I? Oh, you know, all of us would be, wouldn't we? We turn, all of a sudden we just turn white. First thing you're going to do is go to the hospital, aren't you? Something wrong. So Miriam was turned white. Let's go now. Let's go to Hebrews, the 11th chapter. Let's go to Hebrews 11th chapter. So we're going to skip down a generation some more. Hebrews 11 and 24. Hebrews 11 and 24. Hebrews 11 and 24. Everybody got it? Go ahead and read it.
By faith,